Alright. Is this going to work? There we go. Alright, so as always, welcome to another and final round of LSR Group 2. They're not going to work with me today, so go ahead and do it like this. Should be all good now. But yeah, of course, welcome to the final round of Group 2 action here in LSR for Season 4. We do have the Brazilian Grand Prix today. Of course, final round. We do still have another pending race in Group 1, of course, but this will be the final round of Group 2, not only for Season 4, but also on this game. So, of course, welcome to Interlagos here in Brazil. Very high-speed circuit, and for a long time was the finale of the IRL Formula 1 season, and is now regularly played host to the final race here in LSR, as we do have our 17th driver, of course 16 on the grid right now, but T34 will be our 17th driver, as we see the Alfa Romeo of Omega just starting his lap here in front of us. Of course, it's going to be very interesting to see different strategies. Of course, we had Group 1 here yesterday, and a very chaotic race with a lot of close battles up at the front, and that's a 17-2 first sector there from Omega. Of course, going to have not only the full race, but a sprint, so a maximum of 34 points on the board, as we do see Omega have a spin there in that run up to turn 5. So it is going to be a Mercedes behind on a lap. That is Viperize. As we can see, going through those final couple corners, as you can see, more and more people continuing to trickle into the YouTube chat. So, of course, welcome, as always, on this fine Sunday afternoon. Of course, I am Vacant Haddock. Of course, haven't been around the past couple of weeks, but good to make a return here for our season finale, as we do have Viperize coming up over the hill for the final time. Of course, got the penalty right there, and going to be keeping tight to that inside wall. And the first time on the board is going to be a 108.4, so a solid time there from the Mercedes driver, and it'll be the Aston Martins right behind. James, with a mistake earlier in the lap, puts in a 112.3. His teammate of Formula Jonah either just starting a lap or just finishing. Dodoligo, meanwhile, with a 108.9. Some guy for Williams, a 109.6, and it'll be the second Mercedes coming around to finish his out lap. So we'll see where we got a Haas of Kev Prod, who would be next to the line, of course, has invalidated that lap earlier on. Of course, got the return of a couple of drivers who are going to be very interesting to watch. Definitely would recommend keeping an eye on both Bamboo Vegas and Kroner, who have been in Group 2 kind of sparingly as we've gotten through the second part of the year. Of course, the Group 1 championship having been secured by Kevin Cap, with the Drivers' Championship, rather, being secured by Kevin Cal a little bit earlier on in the season. Of course, Kroner and Vegas both in a solid fight there for second. I'm going to have a number of battles for position throughout the grid. Of course, we will have this short qualifying session followed by a sprint from the Jonah with a 109.1. That's a solid time for the Aston Martin. It'll be a Red Bull next to the line to start a lap is Alexis Beast. So we'll see Kevin to 51.6 through the first two sectors. Of course, coming up to the line now. Of course, DRS wide open. And that time will be a 108.436, so he will just get just about ahead of his teammate Viperize and move up into provisional pole position early on in this session. And then only driver out on a lap right now is the Red Bull of Alexis Beast. Of course, he's going to have to keep an eye out for that traffic a little bit further up the road with his teammate spinning off to the inside ahead there. Of course, it'll give me a minute to get fully set up, but of course we'll see the Red Bull making their way through that very tight and often challenging middle sector. Can be very easy to lock up the brakes, and we've seen multiple real-life incidents. Was it most notable of which is probably Hamilton making contact with Alex Albon way back when. But of course, Alexis Beast there out of the final corner. That Aston Martin staying out of the way, and Alexis Beast to the line. That lap will only be good enough for fourth, so only better than the two Aston Martins for now is Zercity actually out of the session. So making a mistake there, and the Alfa Romeo will not take further part in this qualifying session and is going to have to make it up in the race. Meanwhile, the second Red Bull of Speedy Gunner will be the next to set a lap. So, of course, his teammate sitting up in P4 at the moment. Of course, do have Bamboo and Crooner making their way out of pit lane. But, of course, if I'm not mistaken, we may still have... there is a outside possibility that Alpine could steal the Constructors' Championship away from Mercedes, but with only one driver, or actually with two drivers. It's Bamboo Vegas and Kendricks, but that it's certainly an outside possibility, as Mercedes does hold a 60-point lead in the Constructors' standings, so it'll be certainly something interesting to see. But of course, we got Speedy Gunner making his way through the final couple of corners now, so we'll have to see where he comes out, coming around the final couple of corners. Speedy Gunner only fast enough for 8th. So ahead of Zercity's time of a 1:24.0 before he made that mistake. Meanwhile, Omega in the Alfa Romeo, good enough for P3, so that's a really solid time there from the Alfa Romeo outfit. Of course, we'll have to keep an eye on where he can improve. Of course, we got Jim as well for Williams on a lap. He did have Kev Prod behind him, who went spinning right off into that inside grass, as you can see in the background. But of course, here comes Jim making his way through Sector 3. That ERS has pretty much been disabled at this point, so he's going to have not very quick run to the line. That lap, still good enough for 5th, so a very solid showing there from him. Meanwhile, Crooner coming out of the final couple of corners into the line, only good enough for P3, so 1:08.7 here early for the Ferrari driver, as Viper is able to overtake his teammate for P1, and Bamboo Vegas just slightly slower in P2, just 300ths separating those two cars. Early, as we reach 10 minutes left to go in the session. So just give me a minute to get set up. Fully here. There we go. Of course, Bamboo Vegas just missing out on that provisional pole position here early. So very good to see. Just give me one moment to get properly set up. There we go. Of course, but 15 turns, 2.678 miles, 4.309 kilometers here at Interlagos. So it'll be very interesting to see how all our drivers manage it. Rather comparatively tight circuit in a lot of places, but plenty of overtaking opportunities. Of course, into the Senna S of Turn 1, down the Retta Aposta, into Descida del Lago is another great option. And of course, you have to be careful at Ferradura and Lorania, that Turn 6 to 8 complex, as well as De Pato, Turn 10, Mergulio could be an interesting place to see some battles continue up into Turn 11. Some guy up at 10th on his lap time. Of course, that'll be good enough to put him ahead of the Aston Martin of James. Of course, Dodoligo behind on a lap. Let's see if some guy can improve any further in that final sector to the line. That's good enough for 410, so enough for P7. Dodoligo, meanwhile, coming out of the final corner into the line. That lap, I don't believe, good enough to improve. That may have just been to start a lap. So we'll have to keep an eye on where the Haas goes. Meanwhile, Kevin for Mercedes will come to the line. I believe that's, again, just to start a lap. So we'll have to keep an eye on that time. Meanwhile, The Aston Martin of James has invalidated a little bit earlier in the lap, so he'll probably get out of the way for Kevprot. No, he'll just die. Kevprot. Electric Envy, meanwhile, for Alpha Tauri. Of course, definitely a mistake earlier on in that lap, as we'll see that car dive into the pit lane. He's here today, looking for probably a medium to hard look. That'll be certainly interesting to see if we have any more unique strategies that come into play. Speedy Gunner, of course, there's another invalidation. Of course, a lot of places where it can be easy to invalidate, just trying to gain a little bit too much time. Again, that's the Senna S's, the Curva de Sol could be a spot where that's considered, though the Curva de Sol isn't really an option. The Cita del Lago is definitely a place where you can see invalidations, just there on the outside, just trying to gain that little bit too much time, as we do see Kevin jump to the top of the order. That's a 108.191 for the Mercedes driver, so that's about a quarter of a second improvement. So good showing there. Alexis Beast as well, just starting lap, so we'll keep an eye on him. Dodoligo currently sits fourth and is definitely on a slower lap, as I believe that was his teammate of Kevprot who did make that jump up into P4. So Haas fourth and fifth at the moment, so a strong showing for them early. Of course, jumping up to the Red Bull of Speedy Gunner, he's up about a quarter of a second on that early lap time. Of course, going to be coming to the line now. Can he improve at all? He'll gain about 4/10, so that's not enough to gain on-track position, so he'll currently stay P14 for right now. We got Omega, I believe, as next to come to the line for Alfa Romeo. He was down to 10th in the first two sectors. Can he gain anything in that final sector? He'll gain a 10th and a half, so that's good enough for P6 ahead of Kruner for the moment. So we'll have Williams coming to the line next. That's Jim to start a lap. We've got an Alpine diving off into the pit lane. Alexis Beast, meanwhile, up half a second on that first lap time, so he'll likely jump up the order. That's good enough for P6, so he'll slide in right behind the two Haas cars, so a solid showing there for the Red Bull. Of course, with his teammate gaining about as much time, but not any positions on that previous qualifying run. I believe it should get an Alpha Tauri on a lap. I believe no, it's Electric Envy on an out lap. So no drivers on laps at the moment, except for, I believe, Jim, who is slightly up on his first lap time. Of course, the Williams currently sitting in P11. We do have Xercity checking in, of course, making that mistake on what seemed to be his in-lap. So certainly going to be interesting to see what Xercity can do out on track today. Of course, with Xercity jumping in a couple of times. Of course, got a number of drivers coming in as we just jump under 5 minutes, and that's a quarter of a second improvement there from Jim through those first two sectors. So here he comes around the final quarter to the line. They're running out of ERS, so that's certainly going to be that's certainly an interesting issue there for the Williams, as that lap only good enough for P9, but he certainly had a good lap through those first couple of sectors. But certainly ninth is nothing to scoff at for the Williams driver. The only driver out on track at the moment is the Alpha Tauri of Electric Envy, who I do believe made a mistake earlier on in that lap. As you can see, that lap time up in your top right-hand corner, up and over a minute now. So a mistake there from the Alpha Tauri, meaning he has to abort that lap, and we'll probably see him dive into the pit lane as we see a number of drivers coming out to prep for their final laps. As Electric Envy fairly slow out of that final corner. Now he'll actually take off now and turn on ERS. DRS, of course, wide open, so we'll stay on board with the Alpha Tauri as he starts his lap here, of course, through the Senna S here. Of course, we've got turns 1 and 2 flowing right downhill. We've got, once you get to the Curva de Sol of turn 3, you're flat out right down the DRS zone right here. Blasting down into the Cita del Lago. Of course, Electric Envy already down 4/10 on that first lap, so going to have to find some more time there. Of course, got the run now up into Ferradura and Laranja, turns 6 and 7. Really only one line through there, but you can be very bold and try and get a side-by-side there, as Jim, not thinking he will improve on his lap. Of course, Sector 2, very tight, twisty, Good bit of elevation change there, too. And, of course, got turn 10 here. And then, of course, got the run down this long left-hander of Mergulio and into turn 12 of Junseo. Really the last proper corner on this circuit, but, of course, still 3 turns to go. Of course, got top of the hill, and then the long blast down the pit straight. And, of course, Electric Envy will come to the line. Currently sits 16th. That lap only good enough for 15th, so a big improvement there. But too many mistakes throughout earlier parts of the lap. I believe it's Speedy Gunner next to the line. Again, may have been good enough to improve, as we do have Tommy F. We'll have 18 drivers on track. So that's certainly good to see, but it's going to be one of the Mercedes to set the final lap of the first part of qualifying, and it is Kevin Cal actually pulling off to the side there, getting out of the way of his teammate, possibly, but we'll have to see what happens there. Certainly confusing from the Mercedes driver. Of course, those tires are going to be very, very cold, but Viperize up 1.3 tenths here early, so here he comes out of the final corner. He's going to blast around turns 14 and 15 until the line. Can he beat out his teammate for a provisional pole position? Not quite. He's just going to be 300th off of that pole lap time. So Viperize with only a 108.2 does still have the time to try and recharge and go again. But will those tires hold up enough, and will he have enough fuel to get that done? Meanwhile, Alexis Beast, of course, will just be starting a lap. Speedy Gunner, his teammate, meanwhile, will come to the line. That's lap is not an improvement. That will not be good enough. Just 2 passes of Kev Prod and Dodoligo swap spots as he jumps up into P4, and the Ferrari of Kruner, you can see there, just starting a lap, as well as the Alpine of Bamboo Vegas. Aston Martin's as well just coming to the line to start a lap. As we'll jump on board with, I believe, the Williams here of some guy who'll be one to set a final lap of qualifying. That lap good enough only for 11th as of this moment. And Alfa Romeo will be next to the line. That's Omega. He's up 2 tenths early on in the session. So this lap good enough for P4. If he can hold that advantage up to the line, that lap good enough for 6th. Lost a tenth in that final sector. Dodoligo, meanwhile, for Haas. Can he jump back up ahead of his teammate? And it doesn't seem to be for the moment. Though, again, just seems to be starting that lap. So we'll have to see how good that Haas can be and how quick it could possibly be. We do have Formula Jonah coming to the line. He'll have time to set a lap, though that time down 4.2 seconds. Kendricks, meanwhile, jumps up into P9. Alexis Beast to the line. He's currently at 7, and that's good enough for the front row. The exact same time as Kevin Cal with a 108.191, but not good enough for pole since he set that lap time second. Bamboo Vegas, meanwhile, jumps ahead of both of them and into the 108.0s. Can Kruner do anything about it? No, I don't believe so. He's in the pits, so he will not improve, and he'll start in P9. I believe there was a Williams as some guy just coming to the line. Omega will be next to set a time. Of course, though it seems he's aborted that lap, so it'll be Dodolio next to set a competitive time, coming through the final couple of corners now. Of course, got this helicopter shot very tight to that inside line. Dodolio currently sits 6th. That lap still only 6th place, so the Haas is on the 3rd row. Next to the lap, we do have one of the Aston Martins, that's Formula Jonah, coming around the final corner to the line. He's aborted. He's backed off. Viperize, meanwhile, may be on a push. No, he's well down. I don't know if anybody else is on a lap that they can still set, except for perhaps Kendricks, though seemingly slowing down a lot to the line, so he'll start no better than 10th. Is anybody else still on a lap? Potentially Alexis Beast, no. So I believe that will do it. And that is your starting grid for the final round here in Group 2. In the sprint, will be Bamboo Vegas ahead of Kevin Cal, followed by Alexis Beast, Viperize, the Haas duo of Kev Prod and Dodoligo, followed by the Alfa Romeo of Omega and the Aston Martin of James. Kruner sits 9th. Kendricks, Jim, some guy, Formula Jonah, Speedy Gunner, Electric Envy, Zercity, T34, and Tommy XXC will round out your starting grid for the Brazilian sprint here in LSR. So, of course, stay tuned. I'm going to take a minute here to catch my breath and see if I can get these headphones to work. So only I can check something. Of course, if you give me just 1 second. Of course, had to deal with technical difficulties earlier. Alright, so let's check here. But is, of course, just waiting on KevProd, waiting on that card to hit. Of course, there we go. Alright, so let's see. Catch up and see. Alright, so that is working now, so much better. Of course, we do have Bamboo Vegas, of course, Kevin Cal and Alexis Beast, both at the same time, but of course, Kevin Cal setting it first will start on the front row, followed by Viperize, KevProd, Dodoligo, Omega, James, Crooner, and Kendricks will be your top 10 for the sprint. But of course, the top 12 separated by almost a second, top 11 all within a second of each other. So it should be a very competitive race here in Group 2. Of course, we will have Group 3 later on today. After this race, so to have about a 15-minute break before we go live with the final round of Group 3 action. And of course, stay tuned next Saturday for the finale of Group 1 at Abu Dhabi, of course, after having missed out on that race. But of course, definitely going to be interesting to see all the action in the sprint, of course, which will set the grid for our feature race. So we've got 12 laps coming here at Interlagos. Of course, it should be very, very interesting. Of course, get the look at the pit lane Hydras there. 6 arms, 6 legs, and 3 heads make changing tires much, much easier, but of course we'll start that countdown very, very quickly. Fuel as well could be a concern. Fuel burns rather quickly around Interlagos, especially. is great. Thank you, Tommy, for letting me know if I bumped the headphones again, because that happens from time to time, and I need a new pair. But should hopefully have it and be ready to go. So thanks, Tommy, for letting me know of that. Of course, we see the pit lane once again. Of course, thank you, Tommy XZ, for pointing that out. Of course, you're just joining. Got 36 laps here in Brazil ready to go. Of course, with the sprint being won by Crooner in the Ferrari. Of course, this is the final round on Formula One 2022 for this on this game for Group 2. Of course, we've got the Group 3 finale coming up just 15 minutes after the end of this race, so that'll be certainly something to stay tuned to. Of course, we'll be back underway with Season 5 on Formula One 2023, so we're going to have more league racing action here on LSR, so definitely be sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss any of that action. Again, and as well, if you could go down and hit the like button down below in the next 5 seconds or so, that would be great. But of course, just going to be getting ready to get back underway here in Brazil, here in Sao Paulo. So once again, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we're back underway here in Brazil. A much stronger getaway this time from Crooner. Will he be able to hold the advantage into turn 1? No, it's Kevin Cow with another strong advantage. Is going to take the lead, at least briefly. Crooner still there to the inside is going to take the advantage into turn 1. Seemingly clean through those first couple corners. Jump up into 3 as we go 2 by 2 behind the leaders. And as you can see them fan out down the Retta Aposta for the first time in this feature race. We got Kendrick there in 13th. I don't know if I saw damage for his teammate there behind, though it seemed fairly strong, but it's Crooner with enough of a getaway to hold the lead into turn 1. Omega, meanwhile, into 3rd. Jim, Tommy XSC, Kevprod, Viperize, some guy, Speed Gunner up into 9th, as I believe that's a mistake there from Xercity. So he'll drop down the order. Alexis Beast, meanwhile, taking advantage as cars continue to scramble around. Speed Gunner up into 7th, so a good start there from the Red Bull. As you can see them filing through. That's Williams looking up to the inside. A little bit of contact there from some of the drivers behind, as we do see Electric Envy down the inside of some guy, so good move there in the chaos. But here early on lap 1, it is still Crooner with the early lead. Alexis Beast, meanwhile, making moves up the order. He's up into 10th. That's down the inside of the Alpine of Kendrick, so a good move there on the exit. But Jim, meanwhile, will dive into the pit lane, so likely wing damage there for the Williams. Speeding Gun, meanwhile, up into P6, so again, very strong there. Omega and Tommy XFC, meanwhile, in the battle for 3rd. So here they come down the Retta Aposta, that Alfa Romeo defending heavily, and the Ferrari going even further to the inside. Can Tommy XXC made that move stick? He'll be ahead down into turns number 4 and 5, and we'll take the lead as we do lose Jim here on lap 1. Kendricks and Bamboo Vegas, the two Alpines, meanwhile, diving into the pit lane as well, so both drivers with damage, so that's going to be very disappointing there from Bamboo Vegas. Of course, a lot of pace in that Alpine, so he's going to be hoping for a safety car at some point in the Brazilian Grand Prix to bring him back into contention. But of course, the Alpines both having to double stack at the end of lap number 1. But it is still Crooner with now about 2/3 of a second of an advantage over Kevin Cal. That gap growing just ever so slightly there on the exit. So Crooner with a little bit of an advantage there under traction in that Ferrari. And of course, it's going to come down with the advantage of slipstream that Kevin Cal has. But of course, got a Ferrari 1-3 here in the opening stages. Some guy, meanwhile, able to get up the inside of Alexis Beast, even without DRS advantage. So a good move there from the Williams as Kevprod dives into the pit lane, and we'll get a 5-second time penalty for speeding. So going to be disappointing to see there. Will Alexis Beast have a run back here on some guy? Of course, both drivers with DRS advantage, and it's a peak to the inside, but he's going to stay put for the moment. So it's currently still some guy in 8th, but here comes Alexis Beast. Anyways, he's going to look around the outside briefly, but of course not quite going to have it. Of course, taking a look at some of the tire choices, pretty much mediums all up and down the grid. Of course, you got Omega in 4th on hard, so that's a great start for the Alfa Romeo, holding on to that position even through a lot of that chaos, and is now, of course, defending from the Mercedes of Viperize. You got Totaligo in 11th, also on the hards, as is James and Kendricks a little bit further down the order. Croissant are only the cars that have pitted. So Jim, Kev Prod, and Bim Vegas, the only drivers to opt for the soft tires at this point in the race. Of course, as you can see, here comes Viperize, going to be putting Omega under pressure. He's going to look to the outside here into turn 1 in the Senna S's. Of course, DRS advantage, he is going to pull ahead rather easily, so it is going to be Viperize up into P4, but of course he'll have to continue to defend as we continue on in this race. Yellow flags that I believe is for the Haas of Kev Prod, just going potentially a little deep, that happened to slow up a good bit. Getting out of that without much issue. Of course, Tommy XTC, meanwhile, appears to be pulling this gap at the front down a little bit. The gap at about 2.5 seconds to this battle at the front. Meanwhile, Omega is probably going to continue to struggle for pace, and we wouldn't be surprised to see him continue to fall down the order, of course, on that weaker compound of tires. At this point in the race, Speedy Gunner comes in really hot, and I believe there may have been a little bit of contact there with Omega, so that's certainly going to be one for the stewards. But after a really strong early showing, Omega now down to 11th and 12th after a potential incident there with Speedy Gunner in the Red Bull. Alexis Beast, meanwhile, able to overtake some guy on the exit and on the run down into turn 1. Of course, he'll have to continue to defend as the Williams behind now has DRS advantage. Some guy going to be looking to make that move back, and he will. Meanwhile, out the field, Electric Envy is able to overtake the other Red Bull of Speedy Gunner, though that battle not over yet either, as there's Speedy taking peeks around the outside. That gap down to a 10th. He's going to look up the inside. Is he going to make that move stick? Of course, going to have to be very tight, and he's going to be a little slower on the exit. Is going to have the move for the moment, but they're going to stay side by side as they run up the hill. But now Electric Envy, still with that inside line, is going to stick it there, contact, and they're still side by side as they make their way into turns 7 and 8. And I think, no, they're going to stay. He's going to stay there. Speedy Gunner, though, I think just got a little bit loose there and made contact. He's going to drop down into 13th and back behind Omega. And I'm sure that it's not even over yet, as this pack's still very close together. As you can see, all those cars in the background after Electric Envy. Here comes Alexis Beast with a bit of an advantage and a bit of a breakaway from that pack. He's going to have DRS advantage now ahead over the Alpha Tauri. Is he going to make a move here into the Senna S's? Not quite close enough, but they're going to have a peek to the inside. Not quite going to have it there. Behind, meanwhile, Alexis Beast and some guy, or no, that was some guy in Formula Jonah, rather, looked side by side there through turn 1, but the Williams able to defend. Dodoligo able to overtake Formula Jonah now, as you can see there in the background. That battle not quite done yet, but Dodoligo taking a look up the inside of some guy. Of course, those hard tires starting to come into their own. Some guy, though, defending that outside. Though here comes Dodoligo as they come up the hill. T34 and James there in the background as well. So keep an eye on those drivers as we got a 6-way battle going on here on lap number 6. Of course, Dodoligo going to be at a bit of a disadvantage here on those hard compound tires as we make our way through this middle sector. But of course, a bit of a train forming, but plenty of battles here. And of course, as we run down into Jun Sal, that gap down to about 3.5 tenths. Is that the spinning Aston Martin to the inside? That was James who did get reset there. As the game does reset you, if you make a mistake there with too much speed, that'll drop James right down. But Alexis Beast very close to the back of Electric Envy, almost pushing him through the corner, it seemed. Of course, got a terrible camera angle for that, but of course you can see right here, right up on the gearbox and making slight contact there. And of course, as we run down the red Apostle, going to dive really heavily to the inside and is going to get ahead temporarily and is going to stay ahead of the Alpha Tauri this time as they head in through the Descida del Lago. Though the move not quite done yet, the Alpha Tauri taking a peek to the inside as they run up into Ferradura, but is going to think better of it as Omega is going to dive into the pit lane for a fresh set of tires. Meanwhile, up the front, that gap still at about 6 to 7 tenths, as Kroon really able to just kind of keep that advantage solid. As it's just the other spun Alfa Romeo, that is Zersity, up at SA, I believe, turn number 8. So a mistake there, potentially trying to go down the inside of James and just not quite having the room to get it done. Of course, a little bit further back, we'll of course have another shot for Dodaligo to get a chance on some guy. And of course, Formula Jonah and T34 behind, going to be battling into turn 1. There's the Haas down the inside into the Senna S's. They're going to go side by side, and I believe some contact there is going to lead to the Haas spinning. Of course, got a kind of strange camera angle for that one. Though it seemed that there was a little bit of contact between those two cars. But certainly going to be interesting to see how that one pans out. Of course, with that on lap number 8 in that battle for 7th, and now Jonah going to have a little bit more clean air to have a chance to go chasing after some guy for P7. Of course, after a lot of that earlier chaos, got a lot of the pack starting to fan out now. Of course, the pit stop phase is going to the pit window going to open probably around lap number 15 or so. So that'll certainly be something interesting to watch. And meanwhile, up the front, the gap almost just over a second. So Crooner seemingly starting to pull away just a little bit. Of course, Kevin Kell going to have that DRS advantage. But of course, Crooner just able to lengthen that gap ever so slightly. That gap up to 1.2 seconds. So a really weak exit there out of the Curve de Sol. Is going to lose that DRS advantage for Kevin Cal. Meanwhile, yellow flags there. I believe that's for Xercity, though those will pass, as Kendricks and Jim are going to battle side by side, and Kendricks will be able to retake P14. But Crooner now with a 1.5-second advantage and can maybe start pulling away from Kevin Cal now. So has the order been given to drop the hammer now for Crooner? That's certainly potentially the frame of mind there. And of course, Tommy XCC not too far off this fight, only about 2.5 seconds as the gap has stayed. But with Kevin Cal losing that DRS advantage, can Tommy XCC now close up and potentially try to make this a potential Ferrari 1-2 in the final round of the season? Oh, sorry, that was my phone, but we're all good. If you heard that. But of course, you got Speedy Gunner as well coming up right on the back of this fight for P7. But here comes Formula Jonah with a run. You can see that Aston Martin in the back of that Williams rear wing, closing up ever so slightly. Going to take a look to the inside. Going to make the move there. Going to be side by side here through turn 1. The Williams is going to be potentially compromised here through the Curve de Sol. But of course, the Aston Martin still with that DRS advantage. They're not seemingly going to be able to get that move done, and to see the Delago almost deep and into the back of the Williams, and he's going to be Jonah going to be now under threat from the AlphaTauri of T34, as they're going to run side by side up into Ferradura, and that AlphaTauri just breaking that little bit later, being a little bit more braver, and is going to take that P8 away from Formula Jonah, though of course the battle not quite over just yet. Of course, jumping up to the front, Tommy XC closing that gap now down to Kevin Cal as we have a spun AlphaTauri. Was that T34 the spin? No, that was Electric Envy. Electric Envy was a mistake there, similar to how we saw James make a mistake, I believe, through Mergulio there, making that mistake. He's going to drop down into P10. So I believe he was either chasing after Alexis Beast or right close, not too far off of some guy there. But is going to drop right down the order. So it's certainly going to be disappointing for him. But Tom XCC, meanwhile, continuing to close that gap to Kevin Cal. That gap now down to a 1.5 seconds here on lap number 11. Of course, both drivers going to be on the same strategy here. Of course, taking a look at fuel. We'll take a look quickly at some of the fuel. Crooner certainly in a good spot. He's got plenty of fuel to play with, as does Kevin Cal. Tom XCC still kind of on the limit there, so we're going to have to keep an eye on how that fuel situation changes throughout the course of the race, as he's down about 0.2 of a lap. But that's just something up at the front to really try and keep an eye on, is that fuel situation as this race continues. Of course, 2.5 out of Jun Sao now, but Tony's not quite with a better exit there, as that gap to the front still at about 2 seconds, and then a 1.5 seconds behind. Of course, Viperize, you can see vaguely there on the background, is being chased down slowly by the Red Bull of Alexis Beast, so that gap continuing to come down. So that gap should be something to watch as this race continues. As the battle for 6th is T34 and Formula Jonah still right there. So we'll go ahead and jump back to that battle. Of course, got Speedy Gunner on Electric Envy coming, bearing down on them as well. So that'll be certainly something interesting to watch. So you can see the Red Bull look to be a little bit loose there in the background. There's Electric Envy up the inside. Is he going to get that move done? And he will. So fairly textbook move there from Electric Envy. The Speedy Gunner potentially with a move still on there. Almost contact as Speedy Gunner right up to the gearbox. Is going to take a peek to the inside. Door left open by Electric Envy, but he's going to continue to hold just a slightly better line through there. But a good exit from the Red Bull is going to allow him to again peek to the inside, but not quite going to have that move on just yet. Meanwhile, up at the front, still got that battle for P6 going on. Of course, that AlphaTauri is still on the back of that Williams, and that got very close. 2/10, a good exit there from T34. Though it seems a lot of straight line speed on that Williams. Will DRS advantage be enough? As they run down into turn number 1, not quite, as that Williams, a lot of straight line speed, and is going to be able to defend rather easily, even without the usage of DRS. Meanwhile, up in that battle for 2nd, Tommy XXC continuing to gain on Kevin Cal. He's now within DRS range of the Mercedes, so if he can stay in it down onto the pits grid, we could have a battle for 2nd on our hands, as is the battle for 4th, as Alexis Beast as well able to close up and make that battle for 4th. It's going to be interesting to watch here as Tommy is able to stay within DRS range, so he'll have a big advantage there, as that gap coming down rather quickly, 7/10 already is the gap, so a strong exit there from Tommy, able to make that close up. So he's pulling back very closely, or pulling up very quickly, rather, as is Alexis Beast, that gap to 3/10. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Formula Jonah, meanwhile, will be able to overtake T34. Now, I believe through Subida dos Boxes, so that's the kind of final couple of sets, T13, T14, I believe, as that gap continuing to close down to about 3 4/10 between Tommy XXC and Kevin Cal, but Kevin able to stay ahead. We do lose Electric Envy there, of course currently sitting P9 for AlphaTauri, so hopefully we can get him back in before losing too many places. Of course you're not out immediately, your AI will take over, but you will lose a lot of time and a disconnect. So the AlphaTauri is of course sitting 8th and 9th at the moment, but certainly going to be interesting to see if they can make a comeback at all. Of course, just approaching the pit stop phase now. Expect around lap 15, lap 16 for that pit stop phase to start, as we likely see a couple of drivers stretching out stints. 3.5 that gap behind, 3/10 behind them. It is going to be Tommy XXC looking to the outside there. Not quite going to be able to make that move stick, but will have a rather strong exit. Meanwhile, Alexis is going to be looking around the outside as well. Going to take a little bit to the grass, but Viperize as well able to defend. So both Mercedes taking that inside line into turn 1, but it will be Tommy XXC with a chance here into turn number 4 that is going to back out as they run down now. Viperize again defending heavily, trying to break that toe, and is going to hold on to P4. So both Mercedes defending fairly well here, and able to hold position for the moment, as Viperize does receive a time penalty there. Don't know if I missed that or not, but definitely a disadvantage there. But this is really benefiting Crooner up there at the front, as Kevin has to take these more defensive lines. And that gap at the front only going to widen, so any mistakes Crooner makes will have slightly less of an impact, and he can conserve ERS, as there is Speedy Gunner out of the race. That's at Descida del Lago. We'll have to see if that causes any safety action. I don't think it will. I believe he's far enough off the track for that not to be an issue. Alexis Beast, down the inside, even before having DRS advantage, and is going to be well clear by the time they make their way into turn 1. So it will be Alexis Beast taking P4 for the moment, and there is the safety car. So we will have our first safety car incident. I believe that's from Blue Vegas going off track and having a spin. So he recovers that car but is without a front wing, and so I believe the combination of those incidents is what's going to bring out that penalty. Kevprod, meanwhile, will receive a drive-through penalty for speeding, not respecting that delta enough, as the number of drivers are going to dive into the pit lane. Of course, with the leaders not behind the safety car, yet everybody will be able to have that free pit stop and swap off of the whatever tires they elect to start on. But of course, it'll be interesting to see if those if those medium compound tires can last the rest of this race. But of course, got a safety car here on lap number 16. That'll certainly change up how this race is going to pan out. Of course, we will have Crooner diving into the pit lane, and of course, we'll have Tommy XXC as well, dropping off a little bit to try and make sure his teammate has enough space where he can go in, and it can be an effective double stack there from Ferrari. Good stop there for Crooner. He's well on out. And here comes the second car of Tommy XXC. A little bit slower there. Bit of a slow stop there. Can he still get out ahead of Gillespie? Yes, he will. So it will be Tommy XXC still in third once we get to the restart. Of course, some guy going to be at the end of the pit lane here. He is going to be certainly at risk of losing a couple of positions, as I believe the delta no longer a factor for Formula Jonah. So he's going to still get a move on, as will the AlphaTauri behind him at T34. So they're both going to be able to take that position away, I believe. Of course, Formula Jonah can back off. It'll be a race out of the pit lane for T34 and some guy, and it will be T34, I believe, with the advantage, and he will be up into 7th. So T34 hustling out of the pit lane, just about able to get some guy there for position. Of course, this will bring Bamboo Vegas back into the picture as well. Of course, his spin did bring out that safety car, but of course, after having contact earlier on in the race, Bamboo Vegas, who is very, very quick, as we do lose Viperize as well, so hopefully we can get him back. But Bamboo Vegas certainly very, very quick in that Alpine car. Could certainly see him make some moves in the second half of this race. There we go. But should be getting back underway at the end of lap number 18, as we do get Viperize back rather quickly. So that's done. But of course, it's going to be plenty of time for all of our drivers to consume fuel if they needed to. So fuel should no longer be an issue. As well, got to consider a number of things. Tire wear, especially on those medium compound runners. That was an interesting visual thing there. But of course, should be one, maybe two more laps under the safety car, depending on how long it takes the rest of the pack to catch up. But of course, you got 9 cars currently behind the safety car. Of course, Doligo and James going to be pulling up to the pack rather quickly. But hopefully we can get... Sorry about that. Hopefully we can get the entirety of the pack behind the safety car. Though Xerxity seemingly going rather slowly. Certainly could pick up the pace, because that's going to hurt not only himself, but also Bamboo Vegas, as it should be back underway this lap. As we'll wait, of course, got to wait until the end of Sector 2 before that becomes known or not. As you can see, Crooner there really trying to light up those hard compound tires, make sure they're in the right operating window he wants. Of course, he will have control of the pack should this be the restart. It will not, at least not for the moment, so we will get one more lap under safety car as it currently stands, unless we get a very late safety car in message, though I don't think we will. So we'll have, of course, one more lap under safety car. But of course, taking a look at some of the penalties, of course, Viperize, some guy, James, and Xerxity, all with at least 3 seconds. Xerxity with 6. Kevprod did receive a drive-through there for speeding under safety car. Meanwhile, in terms of position changes, certainly an early candidate for driver of the day is going to go to Alexis Beast. He's gained 9 positions after finishing 13th. Formula Jonah up 5, and James up 6 spots. So both Aston Martins doing fairly well, as is Dodoligo, who's gained 4 spots, and then Omega Jim and Kevprod really struggling. Of course, Kevprod has that drive-through that he'll have to serve once we get back underway. But of course, we are going to have all 17 cars, we're going to have 16 cars ready to go once we get back underway. Of course, since Kevprod will be forced to serve that drive-through penalty, but of course, going to have 17 laps to go at the end of this lap. Going to be getting underway with lap number 20. And of course, going to be, again, interesting to see how that tire choice factors in. Of course, James, Dodolio, Kendricks, and Omega all on the medium compound of tire. So they're going to have an early advantage here. And of course, with the safety car, could very well take those medium compound tires to the end of this race. Of course, should be getting the safety car in this lap message right now, and we will. Of course, we'll stay on board with Crooner, just waiting to see how long it is until he decides to get underway. Of course, going to be looking to keep decent heat in those tires. When will he elect to get underway? Of course, going to be ready to go just about right now. Got a fairly big gap there, and he is going to floor it now. Good jump there. Though Kevin Cal not with a terrible reaction, but Crooner able to build a large gap there, and is going to hold P1 rather easily. Meanwhile, nobody seemed to get a great jump on anybody else's. Kevprod is going to also receive a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags, so just bad to worse for the Haas. Jim, meanwhile, going to get Omega on the exit, but it is going to be Crooner still with a decent enough advantage into turn number 4. Some guy in Electric Envy swap spots as James able to get 2 cars there. So good move there from the Aston Martin to be able to take advantage as Electric Envy is out. So that certainly was an impact there. Bamboo Vegas already up into 14th, as we do have mistakes from Omega and some guy. So they're going to drop right down the order. But early advantage there for Crooner, who has since lap 1 and is still going to hold that lead. Of course, no DRS for 2 laps after the safety car, but will that stop Tommy XXC? He is going to put Kevin Cal under pressure immediately as 2/10 of that gap, and Tommy XXC going to be closing slightly, at least early on there. But Kevin Cal is going to pull away just ever so slightly. James, meanwhile, able to overtake T34 down in turn 1, so the Aston Martins now in 6th and 7th, so a very strong showing at this point for them. But that gap up at the front up to a second already, as Crooner just showing a lot of pace early on, as Kevprod will serve that drive-through penalty. Of course, starting lap number 21 here in LSR Group 2. Gap is still on about a second, as Tommy XC and Alexis B is probably going to be putting Kevin Cal under pressure rather early here, as we take a look now. Of course, definitely keep an eye on that delta on the left-hand side of your screen, but got a large pack forming. Of course, first all the way down to 9th currently, still all within DRS range of each other. And of course, DRS is going to be activated at the end of this lap, so in the run down the Retta Aposta again this lap, if Kevin Cal can pull that gap any closer, they'll all have DRS. So it seems that Crooner pulling away rather quickly and effectively, very strong on the exit as the Ferrari driver, as that gap lengthening rather quickly. Of course, Tommy XXC now going to have DRS advantage over Kevin Cal. Of course, the Ferrari showing a lot of pace there early, is going to put pressure on Kevin Cal. Now that he has DRS advantage, the Aston Martins will swap positions. So that's James and Jonah. Potentially a little bit of team orders going on there, though James on those medium compound tires is going to have more pace at this point, so it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic continues. But of course, Tommy XC going to be putting all the pressure, going to be really piling it on Kevin Cal, who of course started from second, but after a mistake from Bamboo Vegas, who is already up into 11th. So strong showings from Bamboo Vegas, who had a lot of struggles early on, maybe putting on a charge to try and pull some decent points. But of course, strong exit there from Tommy. Is he going to have a chance down into the Senna S on Kevin Cal? Not this time, though. That red light already flashing on the back of the Mercedes, so he's already running low on ERS. So will that be the opening of the door that Tommy needs to make this a Ferrari 1-2 as they come through the Curva de Sol and onto the Red Imposta? Of course, got the run now into the Cima Delago, that gap at about half a second, so good enough for Kevin Cal to be able to hold position for the moment. With that Ferrari closing up rather quickly here on lap number 23. Still showing rather strong now as Ben Vegas also able to get up into P10, so up into the points for the Alpine driver, trying to make a charge back up the order. Of course, just about at the 2/3 mark of this race. So still got a little ways to go, of course, as they head down to, I believe that's Junsao? It is Junsao. Some guy is going to be out of the race. That's down at Ferradura. We'll have to see if that does anything. With the Ferrari closing up rather rapidly, 0.2 of a second. He's going to look to the outside, going to switch late to the inside. It's Tommy XXC down the inside, and is going to take the lead, or take P2 rather. Down into the Senna S's. Will he be able to hold that lead now as they head now down into the Descida del Lago? Strong exit and going to defend the inside very early. Tommy XC got that 0.3 advantage as you do a couple of penalties coming through there, but it's now a Ferrari 1-2 as Alexis Beast right up to the back of Tommy XC. Yellow flag in sector 1, that's for an Alfa Romeo. That is for Omega, who has retired, so that yellow flag shouldn't result in anything else. But of course, Tommy XC making that move stick on Kevin Cal here on lap number 24 of the Brazilian Grand Prix here in LSR. Good move there from Tommy with the late switch to the inside to be able to take advantage. And of course, Kevin now going to be under threat from Alexis Beast, who has shown some strong pace in recovering after a mistake there during the sprint. Of course, got the run now down again, and will Tommy go chasing after his teammate? That gap now down to 1.2 So could we see for battle at the front between Ferraris? That'll certainly be something interesting to watch. Here comes Alexis Beast taking a peek to the inside. Is going to make a late little switch to the outside, but not quite going to have the room to make that stick. But will a good exit here through the Curve de Sol give the Red Bull the chance to get through? Of course, going to have both cars with DRS. Here comes Alexis Beast closing. He's going to take a look to the inside, but is going to back out at the kind of last second there. And of course, here comes James as well. The Aston Martin is showing some solid pace as Viperize able to take P6 off of Formula Jonah, who is going to continue to try and hold that. Of course, he does have Kendricks to the outside, who is going to take P7 away from him. So Jonah down 2 spots in as many corners, but good clean battling to see there. Of course, got this battle for third still going on. Of course, James will have an advantage there, at least at this point, on those medium compound tires, but is going to have to try and make that move stick rather early if he wants a chance to get past and hold that spot. Of course, those mediums going to be struggling a little bit towards the end of the race. Of course, and then Alexis Beast, meanwhile, with DRS advantage over Kevin Cal, who has lost it to the car ahead, as Tommy XXC able to pull that gap to Kevin Cal behind him. Of course, closing is Alexis Beast. He's going to take a peek to the inside, but not quite going to have enough to make that move stick, and is going to, once again, have to stay put. Of course, going to have 10 laps to go at the end of this lap, but it's been a strong race so far from Kruger. Of course, came under threat there into turn 1, and then really just has held the lead since. Of course, was under threat from Kevin Cal early, but has really just been able to do a little bit of a time trial on his own in free air. Of course, that safety car almost bringing some issue into it, but of course able to hold rather comfortably, and of course that gap back to his teammate now at 1.3 seconds. And of course, the gap meanwhile behind between Alexis Beast and Kevin Cal down to about a 1/10.5. So that Red Bull certainly going to have the move on here. He's going to look to the inside, down into turn 1. Will that move be able to stick for the Red Bull? Of course, going to pinch Kevin Cal to the limits a little bit, but seemingly clean enough. Both drivers able to make their way through Curve at Assault. Of course, LXP is now going to have to defend from Kevin Cal, who's going to look to the outside, but not quite going to have enough to make a move on the Red Bull, and so he'll have to stay in P4 and is now under threat, of course, from James on those medium compound tires. He's going to check to the inside, down into Ferradura, or up into Ferradura, rather, but again, not quite going to have enough to make that move. Meanwhile, major battle for 6th going on. Got Bimbo Vegas, or got Viperize leading that pack at the moment in P6, but of course with a penalty, and then all the way back to P10 and almost P11 of Dodoligo. A lot of decent DRS train starting to form. So Bimbo Vegas showing some strong pace right now. Of course, is going to have 9 laps to go to potentially try and make as many overtakes as possible. So you can see the AlphaTauri rear wing right ahead. So how many places can the Alpine driver make up in the final stages of this race? His teammate, meanwhile, of Kendrick, taking a peek around the outside of Viperize, but not quite able to get it done there. Will he have another shot now down into Descida del Lago? Of course, DRS once again for the Alpine. He's going to take a peek to the inside. That defended, though, from the Mercedes, so he's going to have to take a little bit of a wider line than he might have wanted. And is now going to be under threat once again from Formula Jona, the Aston Martin. Going to be taking a peek there, but going to get on the brakes just that little bit earlier and back out of that move. Of course, LXP still not out of danger yet. Of course, still has both Kevin Cal and James behind him, though certainly going to be looking to start to pull away. Of course, no DRS advantage for the Red Bull, who currently sits in 3rd. But strong showings there, and good exit out of Junsal is going to allow that Red Bull to start to try and pull away and potentially close that gap to his teammate ahead. James, meanwhile, able to go down the inside of Kevin Cal and take P4 away. So a good move there from the Aston Martin to take advantage. Bambu Vegas able to overtake T34 or in much the same way. On the Alpine, going to continue to hold that advantage. So Bamboo up into P9 and James up into P4 and can now try and chase after Alexis and try and steal at least an on-track podium, even if that penalty may change that. Of course, taking a look at the penalties, Kevprod with another 5-second penalty for speeding the pit lane. Xercity up to 9 seconds, and then Viperize and James both on 3. So keep an eye on those penalties as we get into the closing stages of this race. Of course, we also have James on those medium compound tires who may struggle to pull away. Dodoligo, meanwhile, with a spin there. I believe that's in the run up to turn 8. Can he get that Haas going again? It seems that he will. Actually, that's on the exit of turn 9 and in the run into DePato, I believe. So he'll fall back into 13th, and I think you can see on exit there, struggling with a bit of tire temp issues, potentially. Just seemed a little bit loose on exit and out there on the grass. But seemingly able to keep that car together. So a decent showing there. That is another spin there. And if you take a look on that dashboard, I think, yeah, you can see those rear tires really lit up and hot, as that Haas really struggling to keep that car under him. Of course, on lap 30 of 36, Gruner just continuing to grow that gap up at the front, 2.2 seconds now. So stalled showing as Dodolio will retire in the pit lane, so that's retirement number 4 here in this Brazilian Grand Prix. Of course, both Haas drivers with a strong qualifying showing, but sadly not quite able to translate that into race success, but still certainly a good showing from them throughout the year. And certainly going to be excited to have them back for season number 5. We're starting lap number 31 now. It's a 2-second gap from Gruner to Tommy and Tommy to Alexis. So it seems that those front 3 starting to get really locked up now, as James with a bit of a mistake there, and holding up Kevin Cal. So Kevin going to have a look to the inside now, as a really bad exit there from James is going to drop him down to 5th, at least for the moment, though that move certainly to that position, at least not over yet on track, and certainly would expect both drivers to continue to battle for position now, but that should lock up Alexis in P3. But certainly decent showing. As you can see, James potentially really struggling with tire wear now. As you can see, running really wide there out through Morania and into SA, but continuing to hold that P4, both on track and in the what will be likely the official results. Is going to be Kevin Cal, though. Certainly the battle not over quite yet. Of course, James will have to keep pushing because Viperize, although with a 3-second time penalty, is going to be drawing Kendrick, Formula Jonah, and Bamboo Vegas all into this continued fight for 6th and potentially even 5th. So definitely keep an eye on that timing board. A lot of the battles starting to spread out a little bit. Of course, James still right on the back of Kevin, so that battle is certainly going to at least continue as James continues to put him under pressure. Certainly going to be interesting to watch there. So we'll have to keep an watchful eye on that fight. But of course, Crooner, again, just strong showing. I don't know who holds fastest lap honors as of right now. Actually, now I do. Thank you, Xercity, for solving that question for me. Xercity does steal it away on that soft compound of tire. So trying to steal that fastest lap point away from somebody, at least. But certainly interesting to see. As there is Gruner through the Senate S's here on lap number 33. Of course, definitely worth taking a look once again at some of the position changes. Alexis Peace and James, both with double-digit position gains throughout the course of this race. So currently in 3rd and 5th. Of course, so great races from them. Also, Bamboo Vegas started at the back, had a lot of damage early, but has still recovered up into 9th and shown a lot of finesse in a lot of his overtakes, and could still get one more here on Formula Jonah before the end of the race, as well as potentially take a run at either his teammate of Kendricks or Viperize. So certainly going to be interesting to keep an eye on that there. As you can see, Jonah take a defensive line there. There's certainly going to be something that's interesting to watch. Been a good bit of action. Hey, my throat's a little bit scratched up, as we do have Xercity and Kevprod battling side by side. They're going to continue to battle, and that is Kevprod spun round. Hopefully he can recover that half without much incident. But of course, that battle for 13th at the moment. Yeah, good bit of battling here today. Of course, Brazil almost always produces some solid racing. Of course, sometimes a little bit challenging with how relatively short the track is to find overtaking opportunities every once in a while. But of course, well, okay. Apparently, this talking is making me tired. Of course, that gap now up to 3 seconds there at the front. Acid Master is looking forward to Group 3. So, yeah, of course, got Group 3 about 15 minutes or so after the conclusion of this race. So certainly going to be something that's interesting to stay tuned for, as there is Kevprod now out of the race as we hit 2 laps to go here in Brazil. Viperize as well with a 3-second time penalty, so that's going to drop him well down the order at this point, but he has pulled away a little bit from Kendricks, who I believe he made a mistake, potentially catching up both Formula Jonah and his teammate. But of course, they're both going to put him under pressure here in the dying stages of this race. Kevin Cal able to keep James at bay now with the tire advantage. there's Bamboo Vegas taking a peek to the inside, but will tuck back in underneath. Is going to look to the inside of Jonah now and is going to take that lead. So able to take advantage of a mistake there from Formula Jonah through Descida del Lago there. Is going to be Bamboo Vegas, who is going to move up into P8. Of course, that yellow flag in Sector 2 for the retired Kev Prod. But of course, now have the battle between the Alpines for what should be P6 honors, and potentially P5, depending on if James makes another mistake, though that would certainly be close. Of course, starting the final lap right now, you have Kruner starting the lap, but again, just a very strong overall race from Kruner, at least has led every lap, so start to finish is the lead for Kruner, and it's going to be a Ferrari 1-2 should this hold, as well as Bamboo Vegas is able to get Kendricks for P7. So again, just a lot of really strong moves there from the Alpine driver. Would have loved to see him up in this battle for the lead, but has just been Kruner able to pull ahead and drive very comfortably. Tommy XC as well with a great drive, especially in that spring race, of course, winning driver of the day honors in that. Of course, making it a Ferrari 1-2. Alexis Beast as well, third. And this one was his drive, largely a recovery in the feature race after challenging for the lead of the sprint early. Kevin Cow with a solid drive as well. But of course, here comes Kruner out of the final couple of corners. And in the season finale here at Brazil, it will be Kruner taking victory for Ferrari, so a very good drive from him. Tommy XXC to the line to complete the Ferrari 1-2. Alexis Beast with a very solid showing for Red Bull in third, followed by Kevin Cal and James. Viperize will come home to finish sixth on track. Bamboo Vegas will finish seventh. Formula Jonah able to get Kendricks at the line in the run to the line for P7, so less than half a tenth between those two, as Viperize will end up in ninth, and running at the points will be T34 in 10th. Electric Envy will be finishing in P11, followed by Jim and Zercity. So of course, we'll just wait for those drivers to finish, but of course, congratulations to Kruner and Tommy XXC, as well as to all our drivers. But of course, Drivers' Championship was locked up just a short while ago, and that will go to Kevin Cal, and it will be the double for Mercedes as they officially lock up both the Drivers' and Constructors' championships with their result today. So, of course, congratulations to Kevin Cal and Viperize on securing that double here in Group 2 for Season 4. Of course, just waiting for Zercity to not come to the line. So I think we'll be here for another minute and a half. As we somehow get a safety. What? I think this is quite possibly that was, okay. I don't know how we got a safety car, but that might have been the strangest way to end the season. But, of course, there is Kruner. Of course, somehow ended with a safety car. But driver of the day does go to James. But, of course, great drive, especially from James, Alexis Beast, and Bamboo Vegas, especially in that feature race. So that was certainly very strange. Of course, definitely stay tuned as we see the Ferraris celebrating here on top of the podium. And of course, definitely stay tuned for Group 3 action in just a short while. Of course, you've got the season finale there. Be sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications that you're notified when we go live. Again, of course, we'll have the last round of Group 1 action at Abu Dhabi, where we will have a bout for the Drivers' Championship in the final round of the season. So definitely subscribe and tune in for that race, because it certainly will be interesting. But in the overall results, it's Kruner and Tommy XIC still finishing 1-2. It'll be Kevin Cal with third with 19 points, followed by Alexis Beast with 15. James coming home with 10. Bamboo Vegas, after having a brutal sprint race and first half of the feature race, will come home 6th with 8 points, followed by Omega, Formula Jonah, Jim, Viperize, Kendricks, Kevprod, Some Guy, and T34, followed by Electric Envy, Zero City, Dodoligo, and Speedy Gunner. Of course, there's the sprint and race results. Of course, Jim stealing the fastest lap point, somehow with a 101.5, so that I think that kind of bugs, so it may technically go to Xerxes with that 109.6, but certainly good results all around. But just for posterity, we'll go ahead and scan through those just so we have everything, because I know that's kind of frustrating. But of course, thank you for joining, as you likely have throughout the whole year. Once again, congratulations to all of our drivers, but especially to the Mercedes duo on securing the double. Of course, signing off for the last time here in Season 4. Definitely been great to commentate here for you this season. I'm definitely looking forward to more action in Season 5. So as always, have a great rest of your day, and I'll be seeing you all later. Peace out.